Today, we're talking about do's and don'ts for boards, nonprofit boards. Nonprofit boards can be really powerful in either direction, and I hope that these do's and don'ts will steer you in the right direction. I'm Sarah Olivieri. I'm a #1 international best-selling author, former executive director, program coordinator, conference coordinator, toilet fixer, and I am now so happy to be a nonprofit coach and consultant, helping organizations thrive so they can make a really big impact without it feeling so difficult and overwhelming. So let's hop into this training about boards. And we're going to start with the don'ts. We're going to start with the biggest mistakes that I see boards making. So don't number 2, we're going to win 2 don'ts. We don't want to be too negative here. Don't get in the way. Simple to say, maybe harder to do, but I see this happening a lot. Organizations, and they don't trust what's going on. Boards don't trust what's going on in their organizations. And maybe it's because they can't see it. Maybe it's hard. Transparency is hard because the organization doesn't have a system to easily put the information in writing that they're working on or some way so that board members can see it. Maybe they have concerns about whether or not their leader, the CEO or executive director, is up to the task at hand. And one way or another, sometimes the situation is bad, but often I see the situation isn't so bad, but the board is actually getting in the way. Another way to think of this is, even if there aren't problems brewing, is when I talk to executive directors and ask them, what percentage of your time goes into managing your board, communicating with your board, managing expectations? And I often get a number somewhere around 20%. Now, for my board members here, I want you to ask yourself, do I really want 20% of my executive director's time going to managing my expectations, right? And this is even, in executive directors where everything is going well, right? And I would argue that the executive director has such a big job to do. We need to streamline the communication experience, both so that boards are really well informed, but so that it's not just 20%. That's a really big chunk of time for the executive director, because I don't think that's really moving the mission forward as much as we could. So that's my number 2 don't. There are a lot of ways you could get in the way. Try to think of yourself as, how can we be really effective at overseeing what's going on in a way that doesn't get in the way? Don't number 1, don't get secretive. Don't get secretive. There's a lot of versions of this. Don't have the conversation in the parking lot before or after the meeting, the things that you probably should be saying in the meeting. Don't have closed meetings unless there's something really horrific, like illegal horrific, that you need to be talking about. Don't have side meetings unless that side meeting is for the purpose of telling people, hey, don't be secretive. Have the conversation in the main meeting. That's the only good reason I know of to have a side one-on-one. See, the thing with boards is that when you're a board member, your job is to be one leg of a 3-legged race, so to speak. The board acts as one body. It makes decisions together. So when you start getting secretive and you start breaking off into small groups, you can't act as one body. You actually just kind of lose all your power, and you create a lot of that other thing getting in the way. So try not to be secretive. Now, in order to successfully not be secretive, we do have to work on building team trust and getting used to being vulnerable. And if you're not used to vulnerability, I highly recommend you seek out some work from Brene Brown to get your group, your board group, talking about things that are hard, because that's where the really good work comes in. Often we get secretive because we're afraid of how someone's going to react, because we think we're touching on a really sensitive issue. Well, let me tell you, if you have a sensitive issue, that is probably the number one most important issue that you need to be discussing as an entire group as a board. So that's my number one don't for boards. I'd love to know in the comments if you're watching this recording, or in the chat, or if you are watching this recording and having a group discussion, take a moment and get brave. Has this happened on your board? Have people gotten secretive? It's happened on boards that I've been on for sure. And it's happened on boards that I have been a part of as a nonprofit leader. And I know that this has happened at many, many boards of organizations I've worked with. Yes, this happens. And I think this happens out of we have that loyalty, and then we're afraid of how things are going, and our reaction is to get secretive. Yeah, we've got a lot of people. It happens very frequently. So let's talk about what you should do. As a board member, give feedback to your executive director, to the staff, to other board members. Get informed and then give feedback. Give your ideas, not directives, not so much decisions, but be a thought partner for your organization, for the leadership team, for your executive director, for the rest of the board. Giving your opinion, giving feedback is one of the most valuable things you can do as an individual board member and as a board overall. So this is my number 3 do. Number 2, the I got your back. So right, number 3 is feedback. And number 2 is got your back, right? The board is there to have the organization's back, to have the executive director's back. Now, if your organization needs help with fundraising, you got to have their back. You got to offer to help. But you don't need to be, that isn't your job. The fundraising part isn't your job as a board. It's the I got your back part, right? So if your organization needs help with that, you've got to be like, I got your back. I'm volunteering. If your organization needs help finding, a service, a legal service, or any kind of service, or if they're looking to hire new employees, I got your back. I'm going to help you find that. Anything that your organization needs, if you've got that, you got your back. This also comes to risky decisions. Now, you need to have a quality executive director who's capable of making the hardest decisions in your organization. Hard decisions, by their very nature, are hard because 1, there's no obvious right answer. And 2, getting it wrong is going to have some serious consequences. That's what sucks about hard decisions. For the most part, your executive director should be able to make a lot of hard decisions on their own. But for the hardest decisions, when your executive director is making their hardest decision on their own, a lot of boards go, well, can we trust them? Your executive director is not only putting their job on the line, they're putting their career on the line. So they have a lot of skin in the game, and they have a lot of reason to do this right. So for the most part, because of those 2 things, you can trust that your executive director is really going to do a pretty thorough job making hard decisions. But for the hardest decisions, a great executive director is going to come to you as a board and say, hey, will you share the difficulty of this decision with me? Will you all give your feedback, and will you go one step further and say, you've got my back? And can we all make a motion and make this decision together, so that if it is the wrong decision, we know we did our best, and it's all of us in it together to make the next move better. So this is number 2. As a board member and as a whole board, you got your organization's back. You have your executive director's back. You have your leadership team's back. You have everybody's back in the organization. I'd love to know, for those of you who are live with me, is this how your board is right now? Or if you're a board member, are you doing this? Are you doing number 2 on a regular basis? Are you I got your back board? And if you're watching this with your board right now, take a moment, pause the video, and have a conversation. How are we doing this? How could we show up more with a I got your back approach. We got some I wishes, we're trying. Yeah, needs to happen, but I don't actually see this at a lot of organizations. All right, what's the number one? Your number one to do as a board member is oversight. And this is actually a really simple job, but it takes actual time and energy. I like to call oversight double checking. Your job is to look over what's going on in the organization. And your first question is, are we doing it? Do we have a strategy? Don't make the strategy. Ask the question, do we have one? Are the finances being managed? Don't manage the finances yourself. Ask if they're being managed. Do we have the right executive director in place? And if the answer is yes, awesome, then you can move on to the next question, which is it going as well as it could be going? Based on just logic, right? You don't have to necessarily have a huge skill set. It helps, if you're looking at the finances, if you understand how money works, it helps if you're looking at strategy, if you have a little sense of strategy work, although a really clear strategy is easy for everybody to understand. But you're asking, well, does it make sense? Is it good? Is this sound like the best we can do, right? Is our strategy as good as it can be? Is our executive as good as he or she or they can be given the resources that they have to work with? Are our finances, are we using our money as well as we possibly could? Are we investing in things? Don't make all those micro investing decisions yourself. Really just look at how healthy it is. If it's not good, tell your leadership team to do it better. And ask them. And if they consistently can't improve, then you might need to look at a change in executive director. If it is not existent at all, then go tell your leadership team to get that happening ASAP. And if it's happening really well, make sure you let your executive director know and your entire team know that you're so happy and that you looked thoroughly. I'll tell you a story about this. I was on a board, simple oversight. The financial director would provide budgets, financial projections. And even though I wasn't on the finance committee, I noticed that the financial projections always came in as a PDF. And I have trouble reviewing numbers if I can't manipulate them a bit just to see, do my own kind of scenario planning test to see if it made sense for me. So I asked the finance director, if they would provide an Excel spreadsheet version of the documents, just so that I could just, get into the weeds a little, make sure that I really understood what was going on because I was a new board member. Well, that uncovered a few things. One is nobody had ever asked for that before, which tells me that even though there was a whole finance committee, no one was really looking. The other thing it uncovered is there was a computation error. Nobody was trying to do anything wrong, but there was a $70,000 computation error that put the budget from being in the positive to being in the negative. And what that revealed was that there were certain checks. No one had actually checked that single person's spreadsheet, even though they had been asking for somebody to look through it, a second set of eyes. So that's what good oversight looks like, right? Now, so that's how I had the oversight. And I said, oh, I actually looked, we checked and be like, oh, this actually isn't accurate. Next thing I did is, just, can we fix those things? And that was not a problem. And then I took it one step further. I said, I got your back. You fix them fine. I happen to be a nonprofit consultant and really good with money. If you don't know how to put these double checking processes in place, I'd be happy to just give you my knowledge, right? So there, I got your back. And then I didn't get in the way. I said, listen, if you want my help, you know how to reach me, but I'm not going to push it on you. I'm not going to try to step in and manage for you. So you call me. I made it really clear. I said, you call me if you need the help. And if not, I'll assume you've got it. And next time we double check, we won't find any errors. So this is your number one job as a board member, as a board total. And those are the things that I want you as boards to focus on not doing and to focus on to doing. Your next step after watching this training is you can replay this training if you're not watching it already with your board and have a discussion about each one of these things. In which ways are we doing the don'ts or not doing the do's?